back to New York, you asshole. We've been hearing that our whole lives here in South Florida. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubitz, Mr. Pessimist when it comes to the local teams here. He roots for all of the local teams in South Florida, where we originate from, the Sunshine State. Welcome to the Sunshine State. I can still hear the great wrestling announcer, Gordon Soley. That might have been the greatest signature closeout of any show. When after watching just atrocious, unbelievable Angel Hernandez refereed wrestling, he would tag out every show by saying, "So long from the Sunshine State." I should have copied that maybe and made it my signature move. Hey, if you're looking to make a score, BetOnline is the place to go. That's your number one source, Louie, for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds while the games are being played. If you can't get enough at the beginning of the game, dive in the middle. That's what it's all about. Just keep plunging. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today, people. And don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, that's all caps, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. You put in a dime, they give you $500. That's not bad. Bet online. The game starts here. Well, it ended here, and we've been hearing this forever in South Florida. There's always been a divide. There's been a division between New Yorkers and South Floridians, many of whom were New Yorkers. In fact, there was a time I thought the majority of people that lived in South Florida here, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, anything north of that, it's all hillbilly country, right? It just says, well, when the sign entering like Stuart, Florida, which isn't that far north of South Florida, as they call it now, says, welcome to Stuart, squat down like a pig, then you know this is a different sort of state. We know it's not the same. We pay a big price here to live in paradise here. There are hurricanes, all kinds of crazy stuff, although it's Michigan all over the country now, Libby. Would you agree? Yes. There's no place that you can go to escape. I don't know if you're a believer in global warming, but there's no place that you can go to escape it. What we were trying to do here last night with the South Florida Panther fans, the Florida Panther fans, is escape being down 3-1 in the series to the New York Rangers. Lubie, yes, you have been screaming. The reason your hair is standing up a little bit today, I don't know if it's gel or you're trying to give more of an appearance of being Don King, but you are outraged by the fact that in this series so far, it does appear that the Florida Panthers are badly outplaying the New York Rangers for the majority of at least the last couple of games. From the second period on last night, and prior to that third period, it was an annihilation. They ended up losing the game in overtime in game number 3. Could ill afford, Lubie. You don't want to have your back to the wall. Would you consider this a pivotal game? You're not a big fan of Sergei Bobrovsky. We've mentioned many times the perils of Bobrovsky when he signed as a free agent. Everybody thought those saddlebags full of money were weighing him down, that maybe he even had a tick in one eye or there was something wrong with his vision. He bounced back now. He's distinguished himself. He's a solid goaltender throughout the postseason the last couple of years. He was magnificent last year until we got to the final round with the Las Vegas Golden Knights winning the Stanley Cup. And so far this year, he's more than acquitted himself in most games. He's had a couple of moments there where you thought, oh, my God, how suspect is this guy? But last night, what did you think, Lubie? You were ready to throw in the towel on this series. You know what they say. You can't get good pizza here compared to New York. You can't get a good knish here compared to New York. You can't get good bagels here compared to New York. You can't get good Chinese food here compared to New York. But you can get good hockey. And so I ended up with that 3-2 victory in overtime. And sort of, would you say, is it fair to throw the cliche in there that was a must-win situation for the Florida Panthers, Louie?
Yes, 100%. You're not going down 3-1 versus a team like the Rangers and winning the series. I thought it'd be a long series, and I get you had to have games like this to get to a long series, but I didn't realize it'd be a bloodbath like this. And I am actually impressed that the Panthers have played this well. I'm just frustrated that they've struggled to get it in the net as much as they have now. That goes to how good Igor Shesterkin is. Many think he's the best netminder in the world right now, and I can't argue that. Watching the Panthers barrage him night in, night out with over 30 shots a night, and the dude's averaging like 2 to 3 goals allowed a game. I mean, he's playing out of his mind, and it's frustrating to watch, but it was nice to see the Panthers find a way to put the biscuit in the basket, as they say, in overtime, and finally get an overtime victory in this series.
We're going to introduce you to the gentleman that just popped up on your screen here in a moment. That is Troy West, because we're going to add a new element into the program here. But one of the things that and it's always this like sort of redheaded stepchild image that South Floridians have about themselves when they have to battle off all of these Cretans from New York that have invaded the area here. And even last night, when the Rangers scored, you can hear it's a disgrace, isn't it? This is almost like being a Los Angeles Chargers fan, where you go to the home arena there, SoFi Stadium, and everybody's rooting for Green Bay. And it seemed like it was that way in the Boston series. And now, once again, you hear just an absolute crescendo of noise when the Rangers score. And that happened again last night. So we've always been playing kind of little sister to all of the people in New York. Even as the Rangers were losing this game, you get to the post game on ESPN. You got Mark Messier, who, of course, Edmonton Oilers, New York Rangers, was a great Ranger hero when they won their last Stanley Cup. What year was that? Was that 1946 that they won their last Stanley Cup? It's been a long, long time. Yeah, 94. And they're singing the praises of Shesterkin, who certainly was deserving, but you would have thought this guy was Gump Worsley, John Davidson, and the King, Heinrich Lundqvist, all rolled into one, which he has been great, but they ended up losing the game. And all they were talking about was how great Shesterkin was in this one, which he did keep him in there. But nonetheless, you would think maybe a little homage might be paid to the team that actually came out on top. So that series now 2-2. We have Edmonton going tonight against the Dallas Stars. Another situation very similar. We said the other day that we thought that both of these series would end up being 2-2 after 4 games. That's a distinct possibility tonight. And that's why we want to bring in this gentleman here, Troy West, who, of course, you can follow him at Troy Wins. Does a great job, handicapper, who's up very early on the West Coast. And wow, a vast improvement from the last time we saw you in terms of your broadcast circumstances here. Great lighting. And how are you, Troy? Good to have you on the program here on the morning briefing.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, no, these hockey playoffs, man, for a guy that's not a huge hockey fan, we did get a new coach yesterday with the Seattle Kraken. We're excited about that. But no, these hockey playoffs have been outstanding. It seems like you might as well just bet that every game's going to go to overtime and you're going to come out okay. It's been awesome. Really enjoyed it. And now that we have a hockey team out here in Seattle, I'm becoming a bigger hockey fan myself.
Man, they got the guy that won the Stanley Cup with the Penguins many years ago, right? Bielsma, is that?
Yep.
Yeah, and interesting guy. He had been coaching in the minor leagues and still around. We have a guy who's got the most losses in NHL history. I mean, never mind Toe Blake or any of these guys that were around for 100 years. And Paul Maurice, and we thought he was a putz when we first came to the team. He didn't have much to say. We called him the French Joe Philbin. Which, if you're familiar with Joe Philbin when he was coaching the Dolphins, Troy, you talk about personality challenged. That was Smoking Joe Philbin, which we labeled him. Paul Maurice seemed to be in that same category, but he's far from it. I mean, this guy's like a Renaissance man, a real interesting guy, and he never loses his cool, including when the Panthers are down. So I think we're well represented in the coaching category, and hopefully that'll be the same for your Seattle team. The action is thinned out a little bit, though. We have a slate of Major League Baseball going on. And there's some interesting trends happening there. And no NBA action tonight as the Celtics wrapped up their series against the Pacers in 4. So they're off until June 6th. We thought maybe this was going to be closeout city last night in Dallas. I don't know where you stood on that game, Troy, but turned out not to be the case. It's the first time, 14 times he's gone to the post there in a closeout game, Kyrie Irving, and had never lost before. So this was unusual. And for the first time, we saw a team, a young team, in this case, Minnesota, as what we saw, the Pacers weren't able to handle the pressure in the stretch situations in their games against the Celtics. First time we saw a young team actually close out a game, although they did everything in their power to kind of give it away, didn't they? When they fouled Luka Doncic on a half-court shot with about 12 seconds to go in a ball game and put him on the stripe for a potential 4-point play, only to see him miss the free throw. But first time we've seen a young team hold up in those circumstances.
Yeah, it was fascinating. But, these game 4s are tough when a team's up 3-0 because you've got one side that's up 3-0. They're coming in complacent. They know they don't really have to have the game. The Mavericks have been beat up in this series. Lucas says that he's going dang near 50-60%. And then you've got a team on the other side. A lot of times you see them just mail it in as well, right? And this one was different, though. The line shifted quite a bit. As this thing got closer to game time, the Timberwolves were a 1.5 point underdog was all. They opened up as a 3 and a 4 point dog. This thing closed to right around 1.5. And a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Gobert, you just kind of had a weird feeling that they were going to put up one last fight. I'm going to be really curious if this series extends to 7 games. It'll be interesting. I've seen the opening line here for game 5, and you've got the Timberwolves favored by 4.5, 5 points again. So I'll be really curious to see how much Dallas has left in the tank. And other than Luke and Kyrie, this is a pretty young Dallas team as well. It's a young coach team with Jason Kidd. Doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. So I'll be curious. This is going to be a fun series, but last night, the T-Wolves showed they're not quite done yet.
What kind of balls would it take as they were down 3-0? It's never happened before, unprecedented. Came very close last year, and by all rights, you would have thought it would have finally happened that a team down 3-0 in an NBA playoff series would have rallied and come back and won it in 7. Boston had that opportunity on their home wood after coming back and taking 3 straight against the Heat last year, and still couldn't get over the top. But what kind of balls do you think? I mean, do we have anybody that has the intestinal fortitude to go ahead, the guts to go ahead and bet a team that was down 0-3 in an NBA series, or is that just the definition of insanity?
Normally you would say it would be the definition of insanity. I think this series definitely can. I'm not going to be bold enough to say it will, but it definitely can. I mean, let's be real. The Timberwolves are favored already in the next game. If they somehow pull that off at home, they'll go to game 6 in Dallas. Again, it'll probably be a 1 or 2 point spread there. Could they pull it off again? And then, boy, we're talking real pressure on Dallas heading back to Minnesota in game 7. So, a lot of times when you see this happen, the team that's up 3-0, they're favored by 7, 8, 9 points in the next 3 or 4 games. The margins are very thin in this game. As we know, if Luka didn't hit the 3-point shot in game 2, the Timberwolves win that, so margins are thin. Maybe the luck starts and the ball starts bouncing the way of the Timberwolves. It didn't in the first 3 games. Maybe the law of averages change here in these next 4. I'm not going to be bold enough to call for it, but I would not be shocked. This would be a one scenario where a team coming back 4-0, I would not be shocked.
All right, we're introducing a new portion of this program, the Daily Degenerate here. And you are the guinea pig, Troy, to kick it off for us on the morning briefing. Do you have a play for us tonight? These people that are watching this, viewing this, listening to it on the various platforms, they're desperate. They're getting a little desperate at this point because nobody could figure out the NBA. You thought, sure, okay, Dallas closes it out last night. The next thing you know, you're gargling with embalming fluid as you wake up in the morning, substituting that for your cup of coffee. What do you think? Is there something that we can embrace tonight? Is there something that we can just empty out on tonight and feel very comfortable as we place our bets at betonline.com?
There is. I'm going to make my drive up to the casino here shortly. I like the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers, it's a morning game. It's 11:35 Pacific time, so make sure you're off of work or headed over there on your lunch break and getting on your app during your lunch break. I like the Texas Rangers. This team, you're probably scratching your head. Why Texas? They're playing bad baseball. Yes, they are. They're 3 out of 7. Their last 10. They've got Dan Dunning on the bump today. He hasn't been great this year, but this is a guy that was one of their aces last year. They're at home. They're in a good spot against the Diamondbacks. Ryan Nelson goes for the D-backs. He's been very shaky. I think Texas's bats wake up. Price isn't too big, minus 130. My money's on the Texas Rangers today. I like this ball game a lot. Take it to the bank, Defo.
Well, you don't have to worry about getting screwed by Angel Hernandez either, because how bad of a referee or an umpire do you have to be for the league to just buy you out after 32 years? Pretty incredible. And all you see online are reels and reels and reels of Angel Hernandez. It was hard to probably narrow it down. Worst calls ever by Angel Hernandez.
It's amazing they let him last this long. The guy should be thanking the Lord above that he lasted as long as he did. I'm genuinely shocked. I'd be curious how many guys he threw out in his career. I didn't see that number pop up, but I'd be very curious how many guys he threw out in his career.
Well, it was testament to how bad of a referee or umpire in this case that he was, because the first call after news broke of his retirement, Vince McMahon is on the phone. Says, we got WrestleMania, Angel. You would be a perfect fit. All right, Troy, how can people get more of your selections? Because I know you're handicapping virtually all sports and always have great information out there for the people on your sites.
Yeah, I appreciate it. The website is troywins.com. On Instagram. It's Troy West on Instagram. We're on a 23-4 run right now. It's outstanding. It's all documented. You can come take a look. Again, this is all documented on our Instagram. It's Troy West. Come take a look. We give out free picks. It's $29 a week. It's the best bargain in the industry. That's just a little over $4 a day. And we cover everything, Defo. We cover prop bets. So we've got you covered with your prop bets. We got golf bets. We're doing NHL hockey. We've got obviously the NBA playoffs, baseball. We cover it all. It's not just me. We've got an entire team of guys that put our heads together and make sure we're putting out quality picks. So yeah, come take a look. TroyWins.com and Instagram. It's Troy West, 23-4 documented run right now.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Degenerate. Troy West going to be a regular feature here on the morning briefing, picking games for us. Let's hope he can continue that 23-4 run. And Troy's presence on the program here brought to you by the great people at Greenlight Ventures. Troy, thanks so much for joining us here on the morning briefing. All right, Lubie, we got all kinds of stuff to attend to today and many things to contemplate in the sporting world, not the least of which, of course, will Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever over under 5 wins this year? What do you think? 1-7 so far. They're on pace to just be maybe the worst team in WNBA history, and that was coming off obviously a year where they weren't very good before since they had such high draft picks. But she ends up with 30 points in the ball game last night. Everybody's going crazy over that. It was ridiculous, though. Didn't you think? Did you watch any of the post-game coverage last night? I mean, all they're talking about is Shesterkin and how great he is. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, didn't they lose the game? It wasn't like, you could sit there and say, geez, he gave up a bunch of greasy, cheesy goals. But nonetheless, enough already, Mark Messier. We've had it. Even PK Subban was jumping on the bandwagon there. And you would have sworn that the Rangers won. But that's the way it's been. We have a negative complex here in South Florida. Why is it? Is it just the Chinese food that makes South Floridians feel inferior to New Yorkers for some reason? Because that used to be standard fare, especially back in the day. I guess it was 30 years ago, right? Where the Heat and the Knicks were involved in those bloodbath playoff series in a short span. They had battled each other 4 times in the postseason, with the Knicks winning 3 times. And it was insufferable hearing from these New Yorkers. Yeah, your pizza sucks. Your Chinese food blows. And we just have to sit there and take it, getting slapped around. So we're hoping for a little bit of revenge here in this Panther Rangers series. What do you think? What's the eventual outcome?
Oh, I don't know. I've said Panthers in 7. I'm not going to change it now. I mean, the Panthers have literally dominated all but 2 periods. And it's sad that they're in a 2-2 tie. But, like, at some point, you would think these goals fall. And you saw it in overtime. And I'm hoping that continues. I'm hoping they finally broke the seal and they can find themselves getting more action in the net. And I said Panthers in 7. I'll stay Panthers in 7. This feels like maybe Panthers in 6. It feels like a bloodbath. I mean, it feels like these are the 2 best teams in the sport, and we're seeing them. They've had 3 straight overtime games. So it's freaking ridiculous.
Very little to separate the 2 teams, you would have to say. Although the Panthers were up until last night doing a great job of stymieing the Rangers.
Yes.
Very potent power play. The Rangers had gone ice cold when they were given the man advantage, and Panthers were doing pretty well on their own when it came to the power play with Sam Reinhart, or rather Reinhart and Bennett really doing the damage there. Barkov's been having a great series, and they've been doing a terrific job. Somewhat, I guess it was talked about quite a bit last night that the number 1 line for the Panthers is doing a great job negating and almost shutting down the number 1 scoring line for the New York Rangers, as they've been unable to get off to Schneid in the series. I don't think they have a single goal yet, and maybe 1 or 2 assists, and that's about it. All right, we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. Daily Degenerate, we're going to try and give you a winner every day through a variety of different people. So that's something to look forward to as we expand the horizons of the morning briefing. For Mike Lubie, I'm Jeff DeForest. Hope you guys, every bet that you make turns out to be a winning one. Don't forget about the people at Bet Online. That's a great place to get the action with that 50% matching bonus. Lubie, I'm tempted to send in a dime tonight because I thought the Panthers would have a much easier time beating the Rangers last night. I really did, after suffering that really kind of flukish overtime loss in the previous game. So Edmonton tonight, any opinion on that series, or is that West Coast fodder and we really don't give a flying one about that? We're just waiting to see who opposes the eventual winner out of the East.
I'm leaning the Stars. I mean, it feels like Vancouver was a better team all year, but the Stars right now sort of picked it up in the playoffs. I mean, they're on a very interesting run. So I guess I lean their way. You never know with Edmonton, Connor McDavid, and That's a nice young team, but the star. I'm sorry, Vancouver. No, Vancouver's out. Edmonton has been pretty strong. Connor McDavid's a star, but the Dallas Stars have been sort of, after those first 2 games of the playoffs, have just sort of gone right through. So I guess I lean Dallas Stars.
The Oilers are carrying the added heavy weight of people following vicariously the David Portnoy of Barstool Sports bet of $150,000 on the Oilers to win it all, to win $1 million plus if he gets it done. Now, I don't know. We talked about whether or not this was the time to hedge. It probably was a little bit too soon. And you can hedge yourself right into a shallow financial grave if you're a little too squeamish. So as we say, have some balls. Go ahead, stick with it, and we'll see. But that's probably the most compelling part of viewing that series for me, which they have Game 4 tonight, and we'll see if Edmonton can even it out at home. But and that is strictly watching somebody else's money, possibly. No matter how much he has, you still don't like to see $150,000 go up in smoke, unless you're not the guy holding the ticket. All right, we got to run. Thanks so much for being with us here on the morning briefing. For all the people, Caffeine TV, NoFilter.net, and our various other platforms. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and we'll see you tomorrow, the next edition of the morning briefing.